Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
On today's show, we have Jeff Cottrill, and Jeff is a novelist, performance poet, and journalist based in Toronto. He has headlined in countless literary series throughout Canada, the UK, the US, France, and Ireland for more than 20 years. And he has been published in several international anthologies from New York to Australia. In 2021, his poem, This Is Not Real Poetry, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. And last year, he launched Hate Story, his seventh or eighth attempt at a first novel. The short story, The Madness East of St. George, was a finalist in the Writers' Union of Canada's 2023 Short Prose Contest for Emerging Writers. So welcome, Jeff.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So how did we come to this point? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into writing?
Oh, I've been writing since I was in grade school, like probably as early as grade 1 and 2. I would write very silly short stories, and some of them were just straight rip-offs of cartoons or Wayne and Schuster sketches, stuff like that. It's really when in late high school when I really started getting serious about writing both fiction and poetry. And yeah, I kind of stumbled into the spoken word scene when I was in my mid to late 20s. So I've been doing that for a while. And then recently, like 5 or 6 years ago, just started getting serious about writing fiction again, which is what I really wanted to do in the first place. But I lost confidence due to very bad writing classes where they were trying to force me to be a minimalist or to emulate Hemingway or something. Yeah, and that's when I wrote Hate Story, my first novel, and then I've been working on a second one.
So I think at one point when we were talking, we met on Word on the Street that you did some journalism work.
Oh yes, absolutely. I was the editor of, assistant editor of OHS Canada for about 4.5 years. So I wrote a lot of news stories about occupational health and safety, which is actually a very broad topic when you get into it. I was nominated for an award for one of my feature stories, and I also did news stories online. But on top of that, I've also done a lot of theater and film reviews. I very briefly did film reviews for Now about 15 or 16 years ago, and I did theater reviews for Digital Journal for years and years. I reviewed a lot of Soul Pepper and Canadian stage stuff. So yeah, my main interest there is arts and entertainment, but I've also taken other stuff that's come along.
So what inspired Hate Story?
Oh, well, I first had the idea back in 2007 or 2008, and it was an idea of like a new version of Citizen Kane, where instead of a big tycoon, the guy is just this loser everybody hates, and the journalist had to find out why everybody hates him. And then I kind of put that aside when it wasn't really working, and then I came back to it about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when I thought I wanted to write something about social media vigilantism and Twitter mobbing, what some people call cancel culture, but I try to avoid that term when I can because it's become so hackneyed. But and I had an idea about what if all your old, bullies, your old school bullies and enemies all ganged up on you on a website or something, which would be like, it struck me as both hilarious and terrifying at the same time. And then the old idea I had about the Citizen Kane spoof came back to me and said, well, why don't I combine them? Because they work together so well. And then that's kind of how Hate Story kind of meshed together.
So are you very active on social media?
Oh yes, I Facebook and Twitter I'm on all the time. Not as much as some people, but for me all the time. I also have some work in progress short fiction published on Wattpad, if that counts as a social media site. I tried to join Instagram a year and a half ago, and for some reason I couldn't get confirmation of my email or phone number, so that kind of died. And yeah, so that's where I am.
Yeah, I don't think well, maybe people are starting to realize now that authors have to hustle a lot too, and social media is one of our tools. So
Especially if you're a small press, you have no choice, because if you're with a big publisher, of course they have the budget to promote you. But if you're with an independent press or you're self-published, you have to do everything yourself.
So you call yourself a satirical novelist. So what does that mean?
Well, it means I write satire, obviously. It's a label I get thrown at me more than I promote myself actually. But satirists, we ridicule and attack things, and in my case, it tends to be social related things, not so much political. More social satire, the way people relate to each other, the way society makes us relate to each other.
So tell us a story about some social media toxicity that you've encountered online.
Well, people talk a lot about Twitter mobbing, but for me, it was LiveJournal. You know, before Twitter and Facebook, I was on LiveJournal. People were always trying to pick fights with me on LiveJournal about stupid things. And even back then, it just felt like a bad faith thing where they were just doing it to show off how, how moral they were rather than actually disagreeing with me that much. But I've had on Facebook a little bit too. I mean, just a couple of years ago, somebody disliked one of my poems and just started just bashing me in comments, and started saying stuff on about me on their own account, saying, "Oh, don't you just hate those people who just ran away screaming from stand-up comedy to do spoken word?" Which is totally a straw man, because I've never actually done stand-up comedy. So it's just my spoken word's very silly, so I get mistaken for bad stand-up comic a lot. But that was one example of just somebody who just because she didn't like a poem, and when I posted that the poem was going to be published, she apparently got really jealous or something and started bashing me both on my account and hers. Just nothing better to do. Some people have nothing better to do just to fight on social media and just to make themselves look virtuous or whatever. And when I wrote my book, I said, well, that can lead to bad things. And it has in some cases. I try to explain that to people, but they don't believe me. But it can lead to terrible things. People, even hurting themselves or becoming hurtful themselves. And, so that's kind of how that worked out.
Well, I think on the internet there's this anonymity, right? Where people, you have your username, no one knows who you are. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, to some degree that's true. You can go on YouTube, you can put on a fake user ID or something that they'll never know, and you can say what you want, and I don't know, unless they can track you down through the network or something, for the most part, you'll get away with it. But then some people on Twitter and Facebook, where they do use their real names, or at least people know who they are, and they get into fights just because they want to score social points. They want to score virtue points, just so they can look more woke or progressive or whatever. And there's a lot of bad faith going on with that kind of thing.
I don't know how preventative it is. It's hard to shield yourself when you're on social media. I think it's almost.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing to do is ignore it, because you don't want to sink to their level. You just ignore it, let them have their fun. Don't give them what they really want, and then you can block people, obviously. I mean, on Facebook, I've actually preventatively blocked people who've given me grief in real life or in other platforms like LiveJournal, because I just don't have time for that. I don't want to get sucked into stupid arguments. I don't have time. I have better things to do, like writing.
Yeah, true enough. True enough. Oh gosh. Now, are you writing something else right now?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been working on my second novel, which is about an office environment. It's kind of, I've been describing it as like the movie Office Space, but not as funny. So instead of laughing at the characters, you want to punch them in the throat. Basically, so it's not that funny. It's very satirical. Satirical is not always funny, but it's very satirical. It's very much an attack on office politics and what it does to people and how it can drive them insane, maybe literally. So, and in the meantime, I'm always writing poems and spoken word bits when I get ideas for them. And yeah, and I go to a bi-weekly Zoom writing group where I get new ideas, I get prompts, I give prompts, and sometimes I get new stories out of that.
Now, was it hard to find a publisher for Satirical?
Absolutely, absolutely. I spent literally months, like maybe like 3/4 of a year, trying to get an agent. And I was warned, like expect a lot of rejection from agents, because, they just want to make money, So, and I don't know how to write marketable, I don't know how to write nice formulaic books, that agents want. So of course that was, and I got like very similar sounding rejections that sounded like kind of form things. So I wonder if agents have their own kind of form rejections that they share with each other. And then I just went the independent route, and that was really tough too, because I mean, a lot of the rejections seem to have nothing to do with the quality of the book or lack thereof. They were like, well, your characters aren't likable enough, and the plot's not realistic enough, or believable, whatever that means. And they all wanted some kind of nice Nancy Drew type who always knows the score and has no character flaws, which is the exact opposite of what I was going for. And I was this close. I was this close to self-publishing. You obviously, the audience can't see me hold the fingers like that, but I mean this close to self-publishing. And then my friend Skylar Winter in Australia, she'd already read an earlier draft of the book and loved it. She said, well, hey, my new publisher wants to read your book. Can I pass it on to her? And then we did that, and Dragonfly Publishing loved it, published it March of last year, and there's even a limited edition hardcover that came out in November. So it was a struggle for a while, but it ended up finding somebody who liked it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the agents, yeah, like you said, they want to sell something, and the big publishers have a formula. So if you don't fit in the formula, you're kind of screwed. Here's like
Yeah,
those 5 books too. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that kind of thing, that kind of formulaic thing. And if I did, I'd get bored with it very quickly. I don't think that's what writing's about. I don't think that's what art's about. It's you're supposed to be true to yourself, and if it's sincere to you, it'll be sincere to somebody else.
Definitely, definitely. So have you found an audience online of Page Story? Like, have you been interacting with people?
Well, to some degree, because when the pandemic started and the lockdown started, I got really heavily into the Zoom international poetry community, and through that I made a lot of new contacts through poetry and spoken word, and through them I've made some sales for Hate Story, because I've been promoting the book a lot online through Zoom and also online. For the most part, it's easy, relatively easy to sell to your friends and family. It's just getting it out beyond those limits, which is why I'm doing a lot of in-person stuff. I'm going to a lot of book fairs like Word on the Street. I just did the Ottawa Small Press Fair actually about a week and a half ago, and I'm planning to do Timmins and Lethbridge, Alberta later this year. So yeah, so online has helped to some degree, but you got to get out in person too.
Yeah, you said you were doing it in Australia as well?
Absolutely. This October, I'm going to Australia. So far, we have 2 gigs in Perth, one in Palm Beach, not the Palm Beach there's a Palm Beach in Australia too. One in Sydney and one in Canberra. And the poet I'm touring with, Paul Arcone, he is still looking into getting stuff in the Melbourne and Adelaide areas. So yeah, that'll be good, and hopefully. Because our publisher's in Australia as well. We share a publisher. So hopefully get some more sales and publicity over there too.
Cool. So Jeff, you're going to do a bit of reading. Can you explain a bit about what you're reading before you start?
Okay, so I'm going to be reading from chapter 7 of Hate Story. And basically the novel is about my protagonist, Jackie Roberts, is an aspiring journalist and film fanatic who's trying to find out what Paul Shoreditch did to make everybody so angry at him and even protest his funeral. So for the excerpt I'm going to read, I guess the only things you have to know is that she's at home finding out more stuff about Paul Shoreditch and why everybody hates him. But also she's been feuding with somebody on social media whose name on social media is, what is it again? Nagging Conscience 42. I don't know why I forgot that. Okay, so she's been feuding with somebody called Nagging Conscience 42, who has hinted along the way that they suffer from depression. So and so Jackie doesn't want to go too far with that, although the person is really irritating Jackie. Okay, so I guess that's really all you have to know for this excerpt. About 10:30 in the evening, Jackie has been staring at the computer screen for hours, with only the odd bathroom break. She checked Rick's old email with the links and names, then looked up Morty Bozer, the 4th attendee at Paul Shoreditch's funeral. He was a manager at the Fun Mart store where Paul and Kathy McDougall worked. Jackie shot a note to him asking if he was up for an interview. Since then, she has been scouring the stories section of fuckpaulshortage.com for anything useful. But nobody has responded to her queries, and most of the entries she now reads are either about Paul as a kid or extremely minor pet peeves. All sound the same after a while. One entry titled Sucky Baby LOL, authored by Andy Glan73, piqued her interest briefly, only because it told her what she had already heard. Quoting the entry, I remember Sucky Baby. I was on his softball team in '85. What a little dweeb. If you threw a ball at him, he would start crying, and it just made you want to kick his ass. He used to jack off when he was playing in the outfield, too. Whip it out and jerk it in front of everybody. It's funny how you grow out of your petty childish dislikes after a while, but man, this website brings back a lot of disgust. I fucking hated this kid. Another thing, Jackie stopped there. This website makes her feel icky. Much of it is a high school vicious circle, a Mean Girls ripoff without the Lindsay Lohan character. As if all of Paul's old school bullies have teamed up for one last virtual wedgie. Other times it is like slowly sinking into a mud pit of other people's bitterness. She wants a long, warm, relaxing bath, and she would take one if her teeny little pad had a bathtub. Instead, she goes back to Spitter. Today's slogan is, Spit and shine, we'll save 9, whatever that means. And behold, another reply from the Beagle. Now the Beagle is Nagging Conscious 42. His user ID pic is a beagle, cute little beagle puppy. Another reply from the Beagle. Not that there's anything to be ashamed of in being afraid, Nagging Conscience 42 has written. Everybody feels fear sometimes. It's a healthy emotion. It's kept me from doing something really drastic to myself a couple of times. Like Hamlet said, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear the ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Jackie buries her face in her hands, snorting with contemptuous laughter. Seriously, dude, a Shakespeare quote? And why is this person getting so upfront with her, hinting at these dark personal details? What makes the puppy think she wants to know about that? There's something wrong about this conversation, something that creeps her out. She clicks reply and types with a smirk. If you're pompous enough to quote Hamlet in your messages, maybe the world doesn't really need you anyway. She is about to post the response, her finger right on the mouse, ready to click. No! God, no! What am I doing? Way too far. She sits and stares, thinking about her response. She cannot send it, knowing how it could be misconstrued, but something will not let her delete the text either. Oh, come on! He's not going to take it literally, is he? It's not like he'd actually go and do something. Would he? She emits a forced laugh, but the situation does not seem funny. Jackie takes her hand off the mouse and uses her hesitancy as an excuse to go to the bathroom. When she gets back to her desk, she looks over the unsent message again. Whatever, she says as she clicks back to the tab with fuckpaulshortage.com. She gazes over stories for what seems like the quadrillionth time, then realizes she is sick of looking at the list and tries miscellaneous again. There's got to be plenty here I haven't seen yet, for shit's sake. Such a long list. She scrolls down the list. One title catches her eye, buried between "Screw him" and "So ugly I can't look at his face, haha." Dated May 7, 2014, the entry is titled, "He Saved My Life." Say what? The author's name is Wright with a W. She clicks on the link and reads the modest content. Paul Shortage saved my life. If nothing else, he did that one thing. I find this website unfair and really harsh. Paul may have had his personal faults, like all of us, but he does not deserve any of this. Please take down this website. Jackie is not surprised to see dozens of replies. Headings include, lies, 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 and you're a stupid liar. He would never do that. And come on, Paul, this is so obviously you. Get off the site, shitface. She does not bother clicking on them. She sits back and thinks, wow, fucked up indeed. This is the first positive online comment she has ever seen about Paul Shortage, and she does not know what to make of it. It seems sincere, but so did Mein Kampf. It might be true, it might be a troll, or it might be an extremely deluded person who did not get to know Paul well. Or maybe people are complex beings with good and bad in them, and a guy can be a sick bastard one minute and a life-saving hero the next. She shakes her head and tells herself she will go back to that entry later. After a few seconds of scrolling the miscellaneous section, she happens on another entry she does not remember seeing before, from 2015. Wow, I suck at this deduction stuff. The title reads, "Holy shit, did you know PS has a Spitter account?" I certainly did not. Jackie clicks on the entry. The only text is a link to said Spitter account. This one also has plenty of replies, with headings like OMFG, this is going to be hilarious, and haha dumbass, and is this guy for reals, and what could he possibly have to say, LOL. She clicks on the link. On her screen is a Spitter profile page with a plain blue background and a default anonymous user pic, which is just a silhouette of a head and shoulders. The name on the account is simple, plain Paul Shoreditch, with no bio, no cover image. Jackie reads the most recent entry on the account. "Don't pretend you feel bad about this. This is what you all wanted and you know it." Huh, no idea what you're on about, Paul. She scrolls down to another entry that makes her giggle stupidly. "I wish I could sing as good as George Michael's. He has a really beautiful voice." An unexpected yawn interrupts her laughter. One quick email check and she'll hit the sack early. She bookmarks Paul Shoreditch's Spitter page. Her email notifies her of 2 new comments on JackieRoberts.com. One on a post from more than 10 years ago titled 10 Reasons Why I Love the Cinema, and the other on her 2015 essay about David Lean's brief encounter. She checks out the first one, scrolling down the post, wincing at what a bad writer she was in her 20s. Dominic the Poet has written, "You don't understand that film is not a legitimate art form. It is not, and every educated person knows this. There are 2 distinct reasons. First, it is not an art form in itself, but is in fact a combination of all the other different art forms: drama, writing, music, photography, and so on. The second reason is that film doesn't last. It does not stand the test of time the way music and poetry do, but it dates instantly. Okay, maybe there's the odd exception like Casablanca, but for the most part, films always have early best before dates." She reads no further, replying, "Hey, Dominic, you don't sound like you've seen many films. I would suggest starting with the Police Academy series, which I would argue has stood the test of time far better than the logic of your argument will. Also, I suspect that your sexual history had an early best before date." She groans. Does that last bit even make sense? Far from her best effort, but it will have to do. Then she looks up to the reply to the brief encounter post. "RMHO," the comment from Happiest Gilmore reads, "You are so pretentious. You are the most pretentious film writer on the web, and that's saying quite a lot. This essay reads like you've swallowed 3 college textbooks with a side of thesaurus, just showing off knowledge and no substance. Nobody believes you're that smart, Jackie. I can see through you like you're made of glass." She takes a deep breath. Then she closes her eyes and takes another one. Normally, this is the kind of cheap trolling that she loves. This should be inspiring her with another cutting comeback, another attempt to silence the witless. But if there's one thing she loathes being called, it is pretentious, especially after hearing it a few too many times in university. If you mentioned Hitchcock or Scorsese, they were okay with it, but God help you if you compared something to Ozu. Anytime you make some cultural reference that one person out of 100 might not get, that one person is sure as shit going to label you pretentious. You don't know if it's jealousy or ignorance or what. Jackie does not hesitate to call others pretentious if she thinks they deserve it, but when someone flings it at her, she wants to scream at top volume, raging at the sick, glaring injustice of it. Happiest Gilmore's comment is so deep under Jackie's skin that she stands up and paces around the apartment. She wants to shoot back a devastating comeback, but this attack has left her mute. Why do they think I do this anyway? Why would I take the time to write all these essays for no money, no glory? She does not write about film to show off. She does not do this just to look like an intellectual or an expert. She does this out of a pure love of cinema and a profound desire to share it with others who care about the art form and to teach those who want to learn. Pretentious? Who the fuck is pretending anything? I'm as true as you're ever going to find, you feckless twit. Not like a lot of others. Certainly not like some creepy, pedantic spitter douchebag quoting Shakespeare randomly to... She stops. She sits down, and flicks back to the tab with the puppy's last spitter comment. Still there, her unposted reply sitting in the text box. If you're pompous enough to quote Hamlet in your messages, maybe the world doesn't really need you anyway. She looks it over again and again. No, that's not right. I can't post that. So she puts the cursor at the end of the word really and deletes it. She is aware, after all, that she overdoes unwarranted adverbs in her writing. Good editing practice. Click! With a tap of the index finger, the comment is blasted out into the world, waiting to hit its yapping beagle target. And in Jackie's mind, some sort of justice is served. She's not sure how, but she can feel it, and that is good enough. He's not going to do anything. If he expects me to take what he dishes me, he can take this. And if you want to know how the beagle responds to that, you're going to have to buy the book, Hate Story.
Oh my God, I love it as a beagle. But thank you very much for coming on the show, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck on your book tours, and hopefully we'll see more books from you in the future.
Excellent. Excellent.
And in the podcast notes, we'll have links to your books and your website so people can check you out. That
would be great.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarrard.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.